All right. Good evening, good afternoon. It's so good to be back here on our third Parent University session of the year. Tonight's session, we're going to be talking about bully awareness. That includes physical bullying, cyberbullying as well. I'm so happy that we have Mr. Kirk Smalley. He's the co-founder for Stand for the Silent. It's an organization that enlightens and informs students and parents on what to see in bullying and how parents can avoid it, not just avoid it, but giving them tools to help their kids to avoid it and to get the help and the resources that they need. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mr. Kirk Smalley.
Hello. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Harrold for having me here this evening. I appreciate it greatly. My name is Kirk Smalley, and I am president and co-founder of an organization called Stand for the Silent. Stand for the Silent started back in 2010 after my wife Laura and I lost our 11-year-old son to suicide because of being bullied for over 2 years. 4,179 days ago, I left for work at 4:30 in the morning. My wife Laura and our little boy Ty, they left the house a couple hours later to go to school. You know, Laura actually worked at the school that Ty went to. She took that job just so she could be near our kid, you know. She just wanted to be off work same day as Ty was out of school. Laura and Ty were best friends. They were pretty much together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. On that particular day, Ty was sitting in the gym with his best friend. They were just waiting on class to start. This kid that had been picking on him for over 2 years came up and started messing with him again. And I guess Ty finally had enough, you know. He retaliated. Y'all know what happens when you retaliate? Seems like it's always the second guy that gets caught, isn't it? You know, the bully gets to plan what he's going to do. He gets to look around, see where all the teachers are. He waits until nobody's looking. He goes up and does whatever it is he's going to do. And the victim? They just react. Disturbance draws the teacher's eye, and seems like they always manage to look over and see that second guy take the swing, huh? That's pretty much what happened to my son. No, Ty retaliated. He was the one that got caught. He was suspended for 3 days. They called his mama and she went and picked him up, took him home. They were shorthanded that day at work and Laura had to go back. She told Ty to do his homework, told him to do his chores, told him that we was going to talk about it when we got home that evening. My wife came home at 2:38 p.m. on May 13th. She found out my boy he hadn't done any of his homework. Didn't do any chores. Instead, My baby killed himself on our bedroom floor. I got a phone call that day at 2:39, and caller ID said it was Laura. So man, I answered, and she was screaming. Yeah, just screaming. Couldn't understand a single word she kept trying to say. She just screamed and screamed. And I guess finally I screamed back at her. I told her, baby, you gotta stop. You gotta tell me what's going on. She managed to say, he's dead. He shot himself. I actually asked her who. She said, Ty. Ever since that day, I've traveled all over this country, all over this world, talking to families and communities and schools of kids that have done that same kind of thing. I actually have a list of over 66,000 children right here in America that have taken their own lives because of being bullied in the last 7.5 years. Guys, that's 66,000 babies lost, 66,000 families that have been ruined. January 21st, 2010. Little town called the Colony down in Texas. There was a young man that was 9 years old. His name was Montana Lance. Montana retaliated against a bully that had been picking on him all year long. Always that second guy getting caught. He was sitting in the office waiting on his mom, Debbie, his daddy, Jason, to come and pick him up and take him home. Montana asked if he could go to the bathroom. They let him go in the nurse's bathroom, the only one in school that had a lock on the door. And 9-year-old Montana Lance took off his own belt. That baby hung himself in the nurse's bathroom. Laura and I, we had this little meeting out at our house here a while back. We live kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And we invited literally everybody that we could think of to come out to our house and help us figure out a way that we could make sure what happened to our son did never happen again to another kid, to another family. We had about 30 people that showed up out here, and there was this young mother from Stillwater, Oklahoma that came, and she was telling me about her 6-year-old daughter that was being picked on all last school year by this 5-year-old little boy. Now this little 5-year-old boy actually took a pair of scissors, crawled underneath the table where this little girl sat, and he cut her dress all the way around while she sat there afraid to even move. Had 1 week left in school last school year, and this little 5-year-old boy told this 6-year-old girl, last day of school, I'm bringing a gun to school and I'm going to kill you. And the next morning, little Gina woke up. She was crying. She said, Mama, I don't want to go to school today. Her mom said, baby, are you sick? No, ma'am, I'm not sick. Oh, well, Gina, if you're not sick, you've only got a week left of school and you really need to go. Next morning, little Gina woke up. She was crying again. She said, Mama, please, just don't make me go to school today. And her mom said, Gina, baby, it's almost over. You've only got a couple more days. Three days left in school last school year. That morning, little Gina woke up. She wasn't crying anymore. She actually looked at her mom and she said, Mama, I'm not going to school today. I'll kill myself instead. Albert, that baby was 6. She was 6 years old. You know, you can imagine her mama was caught pretty off guard, huh? And that lady didn't even have a clue what to even say. She said, Gina, baby, why would you say that? How would you even do that? Gina looked at her mom and said, Mama, I know exactly how I'm going to do that. She said, I'll crawl up the shelves in Daddy's bedroom closet. I'll get his hunting rifle down. Mama, I will shoot myself instead of letting that bully. 6 years old, and that baby already had a plan on how she was going to take her own life. You know that list of 66,000 kids I told you I know about? You know the youngest one on it? It was a little boy that was only 6 years old. And when we got 6-year-old babies taking their own lives because of being bullied, it's time we stand up and do something about that, ain't it? You know, I got this buddy of mine, his name is Matt. And I love Matt. That's my friend. Matt loves me. Matt's always had this little habit, though. It seems like he's always got to be calling somebody some kind of nickname, you know? I mean, I guess he thinks they're cute, thinks that they're real funny. You know what Matt's nickname for me always was? He always used to call me worthless. And you know, Matt didn't really even think that I was worthless. I mean, it's just something he said, right? You know, he'd call me on the phone and he'd say, hey, worthless, what are you doing? And one day, not very long ago, I was feeling pretty worthless. And Matt called. You know, Matt doesn't call people nicknames anymore. He learned that day what one word can do to somebody if it catches them at the wrong time. And guys, I know we're not perfect. I ain't even asking y'all to try to be. I mean, we all make mistakes. We all mess up. What I am asking, though, is, man, when we do that, Isn't it maybe time that we learn that we can go back? We can apologize? Believe me, it can make a lifetime's worth of difference to somebody. You know, the day after my baby killed himself, you know, they were actually telling jokes about it at his school. My boy's best friend's name was Trey. You know, Trey got the living daylights pounded out of him. Yeah. That little boy heard those jokes. Actually went up and tried to defend my kid. You know, my baby's mama heard those jokes. I heard him. How funny you figure that one was. Look, guys, I realized it takes a lot of strength. It does. It takes a lot of courage to be the one in a group of our own friends that can stand up, that can say, you know what, guys, that ain't right. There ain't nothing about that right there that's funny. Think about it. I mean, how'd you like it if it happened to one of your friends? What if it happened to your son? I guess it's just a whole lot easier if we all just learn to laugh and go along with everybody else, though, ain't it? Well, you know what? Nowadays, more than reading and writing and arithmetic, I'm thinking maybe it's time that we all learn a little bit of respect for others, maybe some tolerance for differences, maybe even how to be the difference in someone else's life. And guys, we got to be the one that's just willing to be that difference. We got to be the one that can go up to the new kid in town, that different kid, just to offer him a hand in friendship. You got to realize you could actually be somebody's hero. You change somebody's whole world. You know, Laura and I, and we had to learn an awful lot these past few years. Guys, I've learned things that y'all really need to know. You know, I recently learned that suicide is the second leading cause of death in our young people in America, ages 10 to 24 years old. It's second now only to car wrecks. Most people think suicide's caused by depression. They think that, man, if you're depressed, we ought to be able to just look in your eyes, look right in your face and see, oh, you're hurting, huh? Oh, you're fixing to do something bad to yourself, right? That's not always true. My boy, man, that kid wasn't depressed 1 minute in his entire life. That baby was smiling, he was joking, he was laughing with his mama and the women that she worked with. The morning he took his own life. Kids that are being bullied, they learn to hide it real well. They do. They get to where they even quit telling people about it because it just seems like it makes the bullying get even worse, you know? I know. Guys, I do. I know y'all are sitting there thinking, wow, this is some really sad, depressing stuff. You know what? Here's another little sad fact I had to learn recently. Did you know in America right now, 1 out of every 4 kids, that's 25%, 1 out of 4, will not only think about suicide, they will actually have a plan on how they would take their own life before they graduate from high school. 1 out of 4? High school had 1,400 kids in it. Do the math. That's 350 babies in one school that would actually have a plan on how they would take their own life before they graduate from high school. You following me here? You understand what those numbers are saying? That's actually saying that 1 out of every 4 children in your school, in your community, in your town will actually have a plan on how to take their own life before they graduate. I don't know about y'all, but man, there ain't no way I'm going to let that number stand. We got to change that. We have to make that stop, because see, these aren't numbers that we're talking about here. These aren't percentages. My boy ain't ever going to be nobody's statistic. They're people. They're smiling little freckled faces. They're people that we know. People that we love. And you know, adults can tell these kids and teachers can tell them, and they've learned to let it go in one ear and pop out the other. But you know what? We've got them telling each other. We do, and they listen to each other. See, the kids are the ones that can make this stop. I mean, come on, guys, be real. Your schools can't stop bullying. Principal can't stop bullying. Teachers can't stop bullying. Parents, we can't stop bullying. But you know what? The kids can. I want to read you guys an email that I got from a parent here a while back. It says, "Dear Mr. Smalley, please let me start by saying that I was deeply touched after hearing you talk Wednesday at Oklahoma Health Academy. I'm a student there, but more importantly, I'm a mother of 2 beautiful teenage boys. After hearing what your precious Ty went through, it made me stop and think about my sons and how happy and healthy they seem to be. So I decided to talk to them and see if they had had similar experiences away from home. It was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had to have. I had a very abusive childhood. I'd been molested by my stepfather over a period of several years, and after finally getting the courage to tell my mother, she refused to believe me and turned a blind eye. Seeing no other way out, I began trying to take my own life. Small things at first, different pill combinations and such. At the end of 2 long years, I'd had enough. So I came home, locked myself in the bathroom, took 3 dozen aspirin, and slit my wrists. I was found in time, taken to the hospital. but some wounds never heal. Over time, I've learned to block it out, and I never share my past with anyone. I certainly never plan to do so with my children. But I needed them to know that as a human, those feelings of hopelessness and pain, where normal, are not necessary. So I sat them down and I told them about Ty. And then I told them about my childhood. And then I asked them the hardest question of all. Had they ever considered suicide? Did they have a plan? I was shocked by their answer. My 13-year-old said, yeah, he had thought of it when he was angry at me for making him clean his room or something like that, but he didn't have an active plan. My 16-year-old said he'd considered it many times and actually had many plans, most of which involved hanging himself. Now, I wish I could tell you that it was because of bullies, but as I had to hear this awful truth from my baby's mouth, then I owe it to him to be honest. See, my husband and I both grew up poor, and we've done everything to make sure that our children wanted for naught. And in striving to give them this, we've often exhausted our patience before coming home to our babies. And more often than not, the words "not now," "I just need some peace and quiet," or "we'll talk later," have been the first things out of our mouths. You know what they heard? "I don't have time for you. Your day's not important to me. I don't want you around." Long story short, after much more talking, I ended up begging forgiveness from my children for being so blind to what they really needed. And the four of us made a pact to spend more time as a family and to work on our communication. Afterward, my 16-year-old went to his room, and as he walked away, I could almost see the weight lift from his shoulders. I asked him if he felt better, and my reward was the brightest smile I'd seen in years. About 5 minutes later, he poked his head out of his room and he said, "Mama, I want to give you something." And he gave me the most precious gift I've ever received. He brought me the rope that he was planning to hang himself with. He'd been hiding it under his bed for 6 months. And as he handed it to me, he said, "Here, Mama, I won't need this anymore." I'll always be eternally grateful to you, Mr. Smalley. If I hadn't heard you speak, my baby would have been on your list one day. You saved my son's life and you saved our family, and thank you is hardly enough to say for what you've done. God bless you. I did not read that to you to pat me on the back. I read that to you to show you that we need to start communicating with our children again. We got to learn to ask them the hard questions. And we can't let them get away with the easy answers. You know, society today, we're letting children be raised by social media and television and video games. Sadly, most families don't eat dinner around a dinner table anymore, have meaningful conversations. You know, I was traveling here the other day and I went to dinner and I was sitting at a restaurant and I watched a man, a woman, and their 2 children sitting at the table, and every single one of them was doing this during their dinner. They weren't even talking. I did a presentation here a while back and had a couple hundred parents show up, and I asked them that evening, I said, "How many of you asked your children how their day went every day when they come home from school?" And boy, the hands went up and they were all proud. And I thought, okay, and then what? What do they say? Well, they said it was fine or it was okay. And then what? Well, then they went to their room and they got on their computer or their iPad or their phone. Guys, that's not communicating with our children. They tell you their day is fine or okay because they don't think you really care. And they don't want to get into the discussion. We've got to learn to ask those hard questions. No, really, how was your day? What good thing happened? What bad thing happened? And we got to learn to talk to them about suicide. And I know that's a hard subject. As a child, you can imagine how difficult it would be to walk up to your mom and dad and say, Mom, I'm thinking about hurting myself. But you know what? That's the only way we're ever going to make it stop. When we are losing 1 out of 4 children to a plan, then it's high time we learn we can talk about it. We got to let them know that they're not the only ones that have ever had these thoughts, and we can talk it out. We don't have to act it out. And that is how we make that stop. Suicide has always been a taboo subject. People don't want to talk about it. They don't even want to think about it, especially, my Lord, children taking their own lives. In the last 7 months, because of the pandemic, cyberbullying has increased 75%. 75%. Kids are more isolated. They're spending more time online, less able to be around their friends in person. The new numbers for the suicide rates haven't come out yet. I'm sure they've increased exponentially, unfortunately. You know, there are so many different ways nowadays that kids can bully each other. You can bully somebody with a look. You can bully somebody with one word. We all know you can bully somebody with an action. Oh, thanks to this wonderful world called technology, you can now bully somebody 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with an email, a text message. Don't forget that post on Facebook. You know, you can actually bully somebody with something as simple as exclusion. Yeah, it's as easy as not letting them be a part of your group. You know, I've been to schools where first graders have smartphones. And they're good on them. They know how to use them better than I do. They can actually take a picture of somebody walking down the hallway or in the bathroom or in the gym or in the locker room. They can get on something called Photoshop, do a little photo editing, and make it look like that person's doing anything they want them to do. And then they can go and they can build them a fake Facebook account, post that picture online, and ruin somebody's life with the click of a button. And you know what? Maybe even they get to feeling bad about that. And they get to thinking, man, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And so they take that picture down, they delete it, and it's gone, right? Nah. Someone's seen it. Someone shared it. Someone saved it. It's out there forever. You know, as adults, we kind of grew up without the internet, without social media. I graduated in 1983 from a place called Mustang, Oklahoma. We didn't have internet. If you would have came up to me 4,180 days ago and you would have told me that my son was going to kill himself because of being bullied, I'd have laughed at you. Heck, we might have even been rolling around on the ground fighting about it. But we never really know. And if you would have told me back then that Ty was being bullied on Facebook, you know what my answer would have been? Well, we'll just delete his social media account. We'll get rid of it. And the problem's solved, right? No. Actually, what I just did was made it worse. Because now Ty would walk in on Monday morning to his school and everybody would be pointing and laughing, and he wouldn't know what was posted online about him. If your child is on social media, I highly recommend that you be on their friends list. If they're on Facebook, you need to be a friend of theirs on Facebook, and you need to be following them. If they're on Twitter, you need to be on Twitter as a follower. And if they're on Instagram, you need to be following them on Instagram. And you need to have your settings to where you see their posts and their comments first and foremost in your feed. Guys, there are ways to protect your kids online. There's several different companies that have apps out there that will throw up a red flag when your kid is being bullied on social media. They're very, very inexpensive. Some of them are even free. Research that. We're losing way too many kids to suicide because of bullying. And if it's someone you know, someone that you love, I promise you, one is way too many. That's pretty much become my message. It's pretty much become my whole mission in life. I guess what y'all do with it now is totally and completely up to you. My mama always told me when I was a little bitty guy growing up, she said, boy, you got three kinds of people in your world right now. You got those who wish for things to happen. You got those who make things happen. And you got those who sit around and wonder what just happened. Now, which one you gonna be? My wife, Laura, died back in November, 340 days ago. She's finally back with my son. 1 month and 7 days after my son took his own life, it was on Father's Day. And I made that boy a promise on that day. I promised Ty that I would stop bullying in this world. And I've never made broke a promise to my son, not ever. And I don't think I can keep that promise. I don't think that I can keep my last promise to my son. I can't do that alone. I need your help. I need every one of you to just get involved. I would love to come and talk at your children's schools if you guys can get me invited there. I know that what I do can reach hearts and change lives. And I appreciate you guys listening. Thank you.
Kirk, thank you so much for your presentation, and definitely showing strength from sharing your personal tragedy. For it's a tragedy for you, but it was, as a letter you read, it was hope and it was life for that other mother. And so, there's so many thoughts going through my head right now. I'm a father of four, right? And so I was just at a school today where it was some bullying going on, right? But the kid really didn't want to say anything about it because that will make him, that will make that X a little darker on his back, right? And so again, thank you for your courage and things. Thank you for the tips for parents. Talk to your parents. I mean, talk to your kids. Because at the end of the day, we send them to school to learn, not to harm themselves, not to come back physically harmed or mentally harmed, right? And so again, thank you so much. And so right now we're going to open it up for questions. If anyone is listening, have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, or even unmute yourselves and ask questions. We have Kurt on here. He's really, I told him earlier before we started the session, I was like, you're a strong man. And a lot of times you find strength in at your lowest points. And so by you sharing your story, man, I'm blown away, really.
Albert, you said something that really struck a nerve with me. You said kids are at school to learn, and that's very, very true. If a child is being bullied at school and he's thinking about how he's going to get from this class to the next one without running into his bully or getting beat up in the hallway, and he's not really concentrating on his studies. He's not concentrating on the lesson that he's trying to learn. And so, that really is a tell right there. There are so many different things that parents need to look for. If a child is thinking about hurting themselves, about taking their own lives, a lot of times, if they've always been a happy-go-lucky kid and all of a sudden they're angry and sad and secluded all the time, that's a reason that we need to get on there and talk and ask those hard questions. Another thing, if they start giving away a lot of their favorite things, that's a warning sign. That's something that, that's a red flag. We need to get on there and on that conversation. Saying that they're sick, not wanting to go to school, there's a reason. If it's almost a daily thing, there again, we need to have that conversation. We need to talk. We need to ask those hard questions. And first and foremost, always, always, always listen to your child. Even when they don't say things. You're a parent. You know your child better than anyone. If you notice the change, then there's a reason. And don't take "I'm okay" for an answer. Sit down, have that heart-to-heart with them. Most of us have been bullied at one time or another in our lives. Maybe it wasn't another kid, maybe it was a parent, maybe it was a sibling, but we've all felt that sting. Unfortunately, most of us have probably been a bully to someone at one time in our lives. So we know both ends of that. And we got to let our kids know that we can relate to that and how it made us feel. Because it is a devastating thing. I talked to a group of 300 school counselors a couple of years ago. And I asked them, I said, okay, how many of y'all have ever been picked on? And I bet there were 280 hands in the air. And I said, if you were bullied just within the last 5 years, put your hand down. 10 years, put your hand down. 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. And there was a lady that still had her hand in the air at 35. And I said, ma'am, you were bullied 35 years ago and you can remember it? And she said, like it was yesterday. I can remember what the kid was wearing, exactly what he said, and what it made me feel. That tells you that bullying is a life-changing thing. And it shows you the impact that it can have on young lives.
Al, this is Reverend Erica. Kirk, thank you for the presentation. And I especially appreciate the part where you said that it's the kids that can stop bullying.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm wondering if you know of resources to kind of help build a youth anti-bullying task force across the school district here in the Ferguson area, training kids from the different schools, from the elementary to the high school, on how to be like, if you see something, say something, like, you know.
Exactly, and I'm glad you asked that, Reverend. We actually do have a lot of resources. They can actually start a chapter of Stand for the Silent, either in their school or in their community. It's really easy. They go onto our website, standforthesilent.org, and they go to the 4 schools tab on the drop down and click on it, and then they'll find a little thing that says, I think it says download a chapter starter kit, and they can print it out. It's super easy. We made it easy so that kids can do it. They have to have at least one adult to be the advisor or sponsor for their group. It doesn't cost anything, and I'm willing to help any way, they shape or form that they need to get it started. You know, on our website store, we have a bunch of different books about bullying, and what we try to do when I go and visit a school in person and do presentations, I take a lot of those resources with me, those books and pledge cards and wristbands that say I am somebody, that we give to all the kids. And we try to get the older kids in the community heavily involved in this. You know, your high school kids kind of are the local heroes, you know. Think about it. If they start wearing Nike tennis shoes in high school, or Abercrombie shirts or whatever, then all your middle school kids are going to have those on next week. And then all your elementary kids are going to have them on the week after. And so we try to get the high school kids to take that message and spread it downward to the little kids in the community. You know, we've got a book called We're All Different, but We're All Kitty Cats. And it's a cat named Carlos who's bullied by a cat named Vinny because Carlos has no hair. And it's good for like first and second graders. And by the end of the book, Vinny's learned that we don't have to treat each other that way. We don't have to be that way. And, you know, we had a group of high school kids out in California that took that book around to 17 local elementary schools and read the story to the first and second graders, and then had a discussion with them afterwards. And a couple of weeks after they got done, they got to thinking about it and thought, you know what, that wasn't enough. And so they developed a play based on that book, and they took it, or that play, around and performed it for all the kids that they'd read the book to. And the children listened to them. You know, all their lives, these young kids have heard parents and teachers and administrators say, play nice, be good. And like I said, it goes in one ear and out the other. But when their local hero tells them, hey guys, we don't have to be this way, they take that message to heart and they listen. And that is what is working, Reverend. It really, truly is. When you have kids teaching kids that we don't have to treat each other this way, they take the message to heart. You know, there are more. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I appreciate that, and I'm going to look into that. Maybe the church could be a spot to charter a chapter of kids throughout the district. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to put my personal email address in the chat for you, and if you need any help, you are more than welcome to. Sorry, I'm not very technological. Me and typing don't get along. You're more than welcome to contact me, and I will help in any way, shape, or form.
Pastor Erica, also, I'll jump in too and say that, you know, we can definitely work together on this, on different chapters throughout our district. We have 23 schools, right? We have pre-K2 buildings, we have 3 through 5 buildings, we have 6th grade centers, we have middle schools and high schools, right? And I'm sure I kind of like the way Kurt was saying that maybe we can have the high school kids kind of mentor and teach the younger kids,
Sure.
give them something to do. And it also, a lot of times when you say things out loud, you kind of have to reevaluate who you are in your actions and things like that. So
That's
I think,
exactly right.
yeah.
And I've seen that a lot. We've had bullies come up to us and go, "I never realized that what I was doing could cause what happened to your son. And I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to change. I want to try to help." And a lot of times the bullies themselves become some of our biggest message spreaders, and I mean, it just, but yeah, you guys want to start a chapter, you're more than welcome to do that. And like I say, I will help in any way, shape, or form. There's a form in that downloadable packet that kind of tells you the information we need from your chapter. And once we receive that via email, we approve your chapter, and we put you in touch with our national chapter liaisons. We've had 2 young ladies that are amazing. They're based out of Green Bay, and they actually have a community chapter in Green Bay. And they man, they send you resources, they best practices, things that are working at some schools, things that aren't working. So don't waste your time doing this because nobody's having any success with it, that kind of thing. And it's really a lot of different resources out there. Destiny's asking, how do parents and administrators sit down and come to a conclusion as far as keeping our children safe in an environment that's unhealthy and unsafe? McClure especially.
So I'll try to take a stab at that. I just put my information in there for Destiny to definitely reach out to me tomorrow. Call me tomorrow. If you call me early, 8 o'clock is fine. One of those is my office number. The other one is my cell number. Call, text me. That way I got your information. That way we can have this conversation, because one thing that I will say is it takes parents as well. It takes everybody, staff, teachers, administration, parents, to come up with a solution on to keep our kids safe. I'm a parent of four, right? I got 3 sons and a daughter, right? High school age. And so when I'm walking in McClure or any other schools, I don't just see students, I see my own kids, right? And I want them all to be safe. So and if there's an issue there, we need to talk about it and we need to address it, right? And so again, let's talk tomorrow for sure. That way we can come up with a solution, and that way we can get your questions resolved, and that way we can come up with a solution. Like I'm a science teacher, right? So I'm the, let's figure it out. Let's come up with a plan. Let's work the plan. Let's come up with a solution. And then I'm also a married man that my wife, she say something wrong, and I'll tell her the answer to it. And she's like, I don't want to hear that. Just listen to me. I'm like, okay, I don't want to just talk about it. I want to fix the problem. So I want to fix that issue at McClure North, Innovation, wherever the school is. We need to fix this. Why? Because our kids are not learning like they need to learn. And then another thing is they're going to be adults one day, right? And we don't want these mental scars and these traumatic scars to linger. Like the lady that Kirk, the counselor, for 30 years, she remembered her bully. Like Kurt also said earlier, bullies come in many different forms: teachers, administrators, parents, siblings, and things like that. And we have to give our kids the tools to cope, number one, and then also to survive.
And Destiny, I do have to tell you something, sugar. The one thing I have learned about dealing with schools, and I've dealt with so many different schools in the past 11 years that I've been doing this. And the one piece of advice I always give to parents that have a child that's being bullied, you want to fight for your kid. I know that you're a mama bear. You want to take care of your baby, and you want to make sure that they're safe and protected when they're not with you and when they are with you. And I understand that. If we go into a school administrator's office loaded for bear, angry because we haven't had any action, and we've been there several times and nothing has happened, and we go in there mad, the first thing that happens is these administrators are going to throw up a
Hopefully Kirk comes back. Well, I will say, I just put in the chat, what grade is
you want them protected. But
Kirk,
we have,
you got cut off. You froze for a second.
okay, but how about now?
You good now?
Okay, but you have to go in with the attitude of how can we work together to solve this problem, to make this stop. If you go in there with that attitude, you're going to get a lot more action and a lot more farther down the road with the school administrators than you do with walking in going, hey, listen, you need to make this stop now, because the school administrator really can't make this stop now, but together we can. And so, that's just something that I've got to tell you is that we've got to keep that attitude of how we can work together. And sometimes it's difficult. I know that.
Thank you. Is there any other questions at all? Well, again, thank everyone for tonight. This session is great. It is recorded, so if you know another family, a parent, student that would like to see this, it's going to be on our face page, under Parent University, Family and Community Engagement page under Parent University. And again, my email is in the chat, as well as my information, my contact, my cell phone, and my office number. I'm the director of Family and Community Engagement. And so your concern is my concern. Again, these are, I call them mine. So these are my kids, so, and because I know that this job is a tough job, but it's not impossible, right? And so my aim is to make sure we get to the bottom of issues that are happening in our classrooms. And again, as Kurt said earlier, it's going to take our army of kids, their environment. We have to change the environment before we can change the kid. And so we hope that environment is a healthy environment. So Kurt, do you have any final words?
Just know that if there's anything I can do to help any of you guys, any of your children that are going through anything, I'm willing to do anything and everything and that I can possibly do. And if you need more resources, just never give up. There, all too often we think that, okay, I didn't get any action out of the school counselor, and then I went to the principal and I didn't get any action out of the principal, and so I went to the superintendent and nothing happened, but there's always somebody up the ladder that we can go to. If it doesn't happen at the superintendent, we go to the school board, and if the school board doesn't solve our problem, then we go to the state Department of Education, and if that doesn't work, then we can always go up the ladder to even federal level. I've actually had parents that I've helped get in touch with the U.S. Department of Justice. There's a lady there named Anyariba Barhagava that actually has used some archaic laws dealing with human rights. Since we don't have very good legislation dealing with bullying, she adapted these human rights laws and forced some schools to take some actions. There's always somebody above that we can continue going to speak to. I'm not one to talk about spreading names and well,
Is it Barack Obama and Michelle?
and Kirk Smalley.
Kirk Smalley.
We went and met them at the White House, attended the first ever conference on bullying at the White House. And so what I'm telling you is that there's always somebody above who you're talking to that cares about this situation, and don't ever give up. Your baby depending on you. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much, Kurt. I appreciate that. And